Om Sadashivasamārambhām Shankarācārya-madhyamām Asmadācārya-paryantām Vande Guru-paraṁparām. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnāt Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamādaya Purnamevāvashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. So we were looking at the Ashvala Brahmana. Actually, we saw the last Vakya also, but I think we didn't complete the Bhashya for that. So Ashvala Brahmana is the first Brahmana in the third chapter, where Ashvala, the Rigvedic priest, okay, or the Hota, is questioning Yajnavalkya after Yajnavalkya claimed the cows, okay, as the price. And we saw that two parts are there in this. If we quickly summarize this chapter or this Brahmana, the first part is talking about some upasana to overcome mrityu. Mrityu in the form of mrityu means death is the literal translation. So here mrityu is equated to limitations. Limitations with reference to time, with reference to space, and with reference to action themselves. Each action is limited and its results are also limited. How does one transcend these limitations? Okay, for that some upasana were prescribed here. Okay, so first he asked, like, this Yajamana is actually subjected to what kind of limitations are mrityu, okay, and how does he overcome them? So for that Yajnavalkya answered, okay, how one can do upasana, that whatever is there in one's own body, that is the adhyatma, and whatever with reference to the yajna one who is doing, the adhi yajna are the priests themselves who are representing the four Vedas. If you do the upasana of the adhyatma and adhi yajna as the adhi daiva, okay, then you transcend these limitations, okay, of, because basically instead of identifying with the individual, you know, identify with the total. In that way, relatively at least you have actually transcended death. Death, as we know here, is not there anymore once you become a deva or go to Swargaloka and all that. So different, those phalas also were mentioned there for each of this upasana. So these were the first part, was about how to transcend these limitations, at least in a relative way. Then the Sampad Upasana also was talked about. That's what we were seeing, correct? So in the Sampad Upasana, again you do Upasana based on similarity. So you see or you visualize one thing on the other based on some similarity. Okay, that is what is called Sampad Upasana. The similarity is called as Samanya here. Samanya means that's what? Something which is similar or same between two things. Based on that, then you actually visualize one thing on the other. And here, again, this Sampad Upasana also is prescribed, Bhashyakara said, so that those who cannot really do, or those who are not qualified to do also, who cannot do because there are some defects also, again, even if you are qualified to do, you do some big karma, some defect can be there because you cannot control everything. Therefore, you may not get the phala, desired phala. Or there are people who are not even qualified, correct? Ashwamedha and all is for only the king. So what about others? So for that purpose only, you take normal karma like Agnihotra, and then do upasana, that this, whatever the different things you are doing in the Agnihotra itself, you are now doing upasana as though it is being done for some other karma, okay, for the purpose of getting the results of other karma, or that phala itself you can do visualize while doing the Agnihotra, you are getting the phala of the other karma. So like this is the Sampat Upasana. And in this case, what kind of Upasana is done also we saw already, correct? Basically, we are taking the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samveda and Atharva Veda, all these Ritviks are there. Their functions in a big karma, and then you do upasana as though those same things are happening when you are doing whatever you are doing, okay? And by that you gain certain phala also. So the Rigveda, the Hota chants the Rigveda rigs, correct? That is what is called Shastram. Okay, the name of the, this is a technical word. Shastra also is used in, it has another meaning, correct? That while fighting also, Astra, Shastra and all we say. Okay, Astra means that leaves your hand and goes somewhere. Shastra means whatever you are holding in your hand, like a sword and all that. But here Shastra is again a technical word which means the rik only. When you are chanting the rik as rik, it is called Shastra. Otherwise, the same rik you can also sing, correct, as a sama. So this Shastra, whatever is being chanted, that itself you are actually doing upasana on that. Different types of Shastra are there. And then what is the phala? You gain whatever is there in these three lokas. Basically, for all these things also, the phala is the, we can say that Hiranyagarbha pada. Hiranyagarbha, you become the Brahmaji, like that, okay? That is the result which is being talked about, and that only by becoming that particular exalted Hiranyagarbha, you have actually overcome the limitation, because Hiranyagarbha is the totality of everything. Okay. So you gain that phala. In that context, again, it was said that you gain the different lokas also. When you talk about the Yajurveda priest, whatever he does, different types of ahutis are there, because that's what he is doing. The Rigveda priest is chanting the Shastra or the Rigs. The Yajurveda, this Adharyu, the Ritvik, he is putting things into the fire, correct? Different types of offerings. Again, you do upasana on that. And then based on that, you get all this Bhuloka, Bhurloka, Swarloka, like that, correct? The different lokas. Or Manusha Loka, Pitru Loka, and Deva Loka, like that it is said here. Three lokas are talked about. And then the third one only we saw is a trick question, because he is now asking about the function of the Brahma. Brahma is the Atharva Veda Ritvik, who actually does not chant anything, but he is the one who is actually sitting and monitoring everything and supervising and seeing everything is being done properly by the other Ritviks. Therefore, he uses his mind a lot, correct? That's what we have to understand from here. And therefore, here actually, although the question is asked that which Devata he uses, okay, for protecting this yajna or whatever, for conducting the yajna, that Devata is only one, it's not three. Previously, the question was in plural and answer was three, like that. But now the answer is only one mind, and Yagnavalkya actually answers it correctly. Even though the question was in plural, he gave the answer that there is only one mind. The mind is being used by the Brahma to supervise everything. That mind as a Devata, if you take, that is again only this Hiranyagarbha, correct? Hiranyagarbha is the totality of all minds. So that when we say mind as a Devata here, again, we have to consider it as Hiranyagarbha only, Brahmaji, for whom all other Devatas again become the like the sense organs, correct? In the body we have sense organs and mind. For Hiranyagarbha, all the other devatas themselves are the organs. So Hiranyagarbha is that totality of the Sukshma Sharira, and that Hiranyagarbha again, because is the totality of all the devatas, means that is a Vishve Devaha, we say. Vishve Devaha, generally also all the devatas whom we have not enumerated are called Vishve Devaha. They are a huge group of devatas and they are countless. And again, by doing upasana, that your own mind is all these Vishve Devaha, you gain that Ananta Loka, means again this Anantyam here is that you have identity with all the devatas, means again that is the Hiranyagarbha pada only you will gain. This is all already mentioned. And finally, again he is asking about the Samaveda, who is called the Samaveda priest Udgata, the Ritvik who uses Samaveda. So here again, by doing this upasana of the Samaveda priest activities, what do you gain? Means it is the same thing like already for Rigveda also the answer was the same, and but here some more details are given. Okay, so that's what Bhashyakara is going to explain. What is the actual connection? How you say that by chanting one type of Sama or Rik, you are going to get this loka. All that Samanya also is there. It was just said by count. The similarities between the count. 3 is there, 3 is here. Now more details are given here between the whatever is there in the Adhyatma and whatever at the Adhidaiva level. So we'll see that. So again, Yajnavalkyeti Hovacheti Purvavat. So this part already we know, he just calls the attention of Yajnavalkya. Again, Kati Stotriyaha Stoshyati iti Ayam Udgata. So this Udgata is the Samaveda Ritvik, and this person, how many types of Samas are Stotriya it is called here, because Sama itself is sung. The rigs are sung in the praise of the Devatas. So by singing how many types of these Sama, this Samaveda Ritvik is praising all the Devatas. So again, Bhashyakara explains here, what is the meaning of Stotriyaha? The word is used here. He says, Stotriya nama Rik Sama Samudayaha. Okay, the Stotriya means here the Rik only. And also the Sama Samudaya means the Samagana. A group of Samagana, they are only called Stotriyaha. And Katipayanam Richam. So some Samaganas are there and they are only called as Stotriya here. So that's what Bhashyakara is explaining here. And what are these? Okay. So the rigs which can be chanted as Samagana are only called as, actually, because all rigs do not become Samagana, I think, because Rigveda Samhita is very big. Only by chanting them, normally only it takes 24 hours you have to chant. Then only you will complete the entire Rig Samhita. But Samaveda also it takes similar amount of time, okay, because we have done a complete Samaparayanam, Samaveda Samhita Parayanam we did in our Kaldai Kurchi itself. And they chanted for 6 days. I think every day they were chanting for some 6 hours or something. So it is even more than 24 hours. But still they are singing, correct? It is not one small rik only you will be singing, means they add all this aha, uhu, etc. And it takes some more time, correct? It is at least taking 2-3 times more. So all riks do not become Sama. But Samaveda, whatever we are singing, are all part of Rig Veda only. Whether everything is part or something is only specific to Sama, I think mostly whatever I have heard is everything is actually from the Rig Veda only, whatever we are chanting. So that's why he says Katipayanam Richam Sama Samudayaha. Okay, Rig Sama Samudayaha means this is what is called Stotriyaha, whatever rigs which can be chanted as Sama. And Stotriyaha va Shashyaha va Yaha Kaschana Richaha Taha Sarvaha Tisraha Eva Ityaha. So Sashyaha also we saw before, correct? Whatever rigs chanted by the Rigvedi, and Stotriya is whatever is chanted by the Samavedi. They are all, whichever rig which is either sung as Sama or chanted by the Rigveda Ritvik, they are all only three types. Okay, Taha Sarvaha Tisraha Eva Ityaha. Already it was said. Tascha Vyakyataha. It was already also commented upon. And again they are only repeated here. Puronu Vakya cha Yajya cha Shashya Eva Tritiya. So Puronu Vakya means what it is, already it was said. The preliminary, whatever you chant before the actual karma is called Puronu Vakya. Yajya are all the rigs which you chant while you are offering something into the fire. And Sashya means those which you are chanting to praise the Devatas. So three types, these were already commented upon. And the same thing is repeated here. So Bhashyakara is not talking about that. And so he now again reminds you, but he says Tatra Purva Muktam. So in that context, already what was said, Yatkinchid idam pranabrit sarvam yajati iti tat kena samanyene iti. So the phala of doing the upasana of these three rigs was said that you will gain all that is living, means what? All the lokas in which living beings are there, means all three lokas you will gain. Means that is the Hiranyagarbha pada. So that was already said, and the how, based on what? Similarity means based on count itself. Three lokas, three types of rigs. That is the similarity. But now what is here answered is Uchyate, means right now then. Already this was said here itself. If you go back, when we talked about, this is what Bhashyakara is saying. Tabihi jayati iti yatkinchid idam pranabriditi. Okay. So here the Samanya is only the Sankhya Vishayaha, he said. Okay. Sankhya itself. Atascha Sankhya Samanyat. This is what Bhashyakara said. So that he reminds you here. This was already said by me in that context. But now what? But still the same three are there, correct? Here it is being talked about the currently Katamaha Taha Tisraha Richaha Ya Adhyatmam Bhavanti. Now those three, how they are related to whatever is there with reference to your body. Okay, correct? So that is the answer which is being given here. With reference to your body, each of these type of rigs, how they are connected, or what is the similarity with the Adhyatma, that is said here. Okay, that is what the question also is, correct? Ashwala is now asking, you can see here, Katamaha Taha Yaha Adhyatmam iti, he asks, once this answer is given. Okay. Now that is being answered here. Prana eva puronu vakya. So prana is whatever prana is there in this body, that is having similarity with puronu vakya, class of rig. But what is the similarity? It's very funny here. Bhashyakara says pa shabda samanya. He says both are starting with pakara. Okay, pranaha puronu vakya. That is the similarity. Okay, pa shabda samanyat. Prana eva puronu vakya pa shabda samanyat. And apanaha yajya. And apana in your body is the yajya class of rigs. Now why it is connected to yajya means After prana, apana comes, which is anantaryat. And similarly, after puronuvakya only, the yajya are chanted, and then the offerings are given into fire. Or Bhashyakara gives Anantaryat he is not satisfied, I think. So he gives one more similarity. Apanenehi pratham havihi devata grasanti. So through apana only, whatever offerings you give, the devatas are actually getting it. Okay, grasanti means they grab it, you can say. So they are getting whatever you are offering only due to apana, means whatever you put, it is going down into the fire, correct? Apana is the prana which is taking things down. Okay. So yagascha pradhanam, and in the yaga, basically yaga also is whatever you sacrifice or your offer, and that is taken, this offering is taken by the devatas only through apana. Therefore, there is a similarity there. Apana is yajya, because in yajya, basically you are offering, and that offering itself is reaching the devatas. Okay, or they are getting it only through apana. Then vyanaha sashya. So vyana is sashya, and for that again he is quoting Chandogya there. Apranan, apanan, anapanan, richam abhivyaharati iti shrutyantara. So another shruti, Chandogya shruti is there, where again this you are certain rigs without using the prana or apana, one chants that, okay, abhivyaharati. So this is there in the Chandogya Upanishad. Okay. So therefore, what this Chandogya is talking about something other than the prana or apana, and then that is called vyana. Through the vyana only, these certain rigs are chanted without without using the prana and apana. So that those are all the shashyaha. This is reference there also. So there is a Shutriyantara is there. So vyana is connected to shasya, or it has certain similarities. Okay, with this, what does he gain by doing all this upasana? Kim tabihi jayati iti vyakhyatam. This was already in fact said, correct? All the three, whatever prana brit is there, he gains. That means all the living beings which are there in all the three lokas is gained. Means identity with all of them. That means you are total. Now, but here what further Vishesha Sambandha also was said there. Tatra Vishesha Sambandha Samanyam Uktam Iha Uchyate. So there, Sarvam it was said. Okay. Sarvam Anya Vyakhyatam. So there also it was said that you gain everything. Okay. But here, what is that Sarvam? So, and how this becomes Sarvam, correct? The particular connections also has to be given. That was not given there. Simply you say that Sarvam Jayat Jayati. Okay. If you see here, that was said here, correct? Yat Kinchit Pranabrit means everything which is there here, which is having a life. And Bhashyakara also simply said Sankhya Samanyat, but then that is being now explained in more detail here, he says. Because each loka, how it is connected to prana, apana, and vyana also is said here. So that is the Vishesha Sambandha. So Vishesha Sambandha Samanyam Anuktam Iha Uchyate, he says. So there only this count was given, but how each is related to the other, or the phala, also the Sambandha, the connection was not given. That is going to be said here. Other things, whatever said there is already there. Sarvam anyat vyakyatam, he says. Everything else I have already explained. I am not going to go into that, but that sambandha only again he is telling here. Loka sambandha samanyena prithvi lokameva puronuvakyaya jayati. So through prithvi only, through puronuvakya, you are winning the prithvi loka. That is now being said here. Correct? Tabihi jayati iti prithvi lokameva puronuvakyaya. This is what Yajnavalkya answers. Because the question is kim tabihi jayati iti. So what does one gain by doing all this upasana? Means the puronuvakya upasana means you gain the prithvi. And again the prithvi also pa sambandha is there, you can say. Correct? That's what he said. Pa shabda samanyat. Prithvi, puronuvakya, prana. All pa sambandha is there. Then antariksha lokam yajyaya. Okay. And madhyamatva samanya. That's what anantaryat he said. Correct? In between, next and in between. Antariksha loka, whatever space is there in between the prithvi and Dyulokam or Swargalokam. So that is the Antariksha. They both have intermediate status. That is the Samanya or similarity. Yajya and Antariksha Loka. And Dyuloka is with Shashya because that is the Urdhatva Samanya, because they are the highest form. So this is the similarity again. He shows explicitly. So that is answered here also, correct? Antariksha lokam yajaya, dyulokam shasya, tataha hota ashwalaha upararama. After that, he kept silent because he knew that Yajnavalkya knows everything, whatever he knows, and even more than that. Therefore, what tataha tasmat, tataha means tasmat. Thereafter, what atmanaha prashna nirnayat asau hota ashwalaha upararama na ayam asmad gocharaha iti. So whatever questions he asked, correct, they were all answered. Okay, prashna nirnaya means his answer has been ascertained for all his questions. Therefore, what this hota ashwalaha, he stopped asking any more questions because he now understood that Yajnavalkya is in a different league. Asmat gocharaha na ayam means what, he is not within my grasp or within at my level. Yajnavalkya is at a higher level than myself, so it is better that I keep quiet. So he came to that conclusion. So with this, okay, did Yajnavalkya really take away all the cows? No. Even though he stopped, another Brahmana comes into the picture here. Okay, that is why now we have this next Brahmana. Okay, Jarat Karava Artha Bhagaha is the name of this particular Rishi. So this particular Brahmana, the next one, 3-2, is called Artha Bhaga Brahmana. Previous one is called Ashwala Brahmana. This is called Artha Bhaga Brahmana. So he starts questioning Yajnavalkya. But before that, Bhashyakara is giving some introduction, connection between the two. Okay, the previous Brahmana and this Brahmana. So let us see that. So Akhyayika Sambandha Prasiddha. So in the introduction to the Ashwala Brahmana only, Bhashyakara said that the story, how it is connected, that was already explained to you. And Mrityoho Atimyuktihi Vyakhyata Kala Lakshanat Karma Lakshanat cha. Again, how to gain freedom from limitations in the form of Mrityu, with itself is characterized by time and also the activities, karma. Kaha punaha asau mrityuhu yasmat atimuktihi vyakhyata. And again, what is this mrityu from which the liberation or freedom was talked about, correct? Such a swabhavika ajnana sangaspadaha adhyatma adhibhuta vishaya parichinnaha. Graha atigraha lakshanaha mrityuhu. So this mrityu, what is this mrityu? Means this mrityu is really swabhavika ajnana sangha aspadaha, he says. So it is something which is connected with your own ignorance, which is swabhavika, means what? Which is again part of your very nature, something which is natural. Everybody is born ignorant. Okay. And so this particular mithyu itself, aspadaha, means it is centered on, we can say. Correct. Your ignorance is centered on yourself because it is with reference to yourself. It is centered on yourself also. Because whenever we talk about ignorance, in fact, there is a big discussion in Advaita Vedanta itself about what is ajnana vishaya, okay, and ajnana is aspada or adhishtana, where it is centered on. Whether it is jiva or brahman and all that, different people have different opinion on that. But anyway, so we won't go into that. But here basically Bhashyakara says that this ajnana aspadaha only, all mrityu or all limitations are death really, and they are centered on yourself. In fact, centered on the ignorance with reference to yourself, okay, and which itself is something which is there already, which is swabhavika. Swabhavika ajnana sangha aspadaha. Adhyatma adibhuta vishaya parichinnaha. So all the limitations with reference to one's own body and with reference to the surroundings, correct? Adibhuta, with reference to the bhutas. So all these limitations, and they will also be talked about in this Brahmana, the Artha Bhaga Brahmana. It will, the Yajnavalkya will be listing out graha and atigraha, like that lakshana, characterized by graha and atigraha. Means graha are the indriyas themselves, are the graha, because they are all the time grasping, correct? Grihnati. Grihnati means what? Grasp or go and take over something. And they are grasping what? The sense objects. They are the atigraha. So here the graha is the indriya and atigraha is the sense objects or indriya vishaya. So indriya vishaya are all the time grabbing the indriyas themselves, correct? Because indriyas are all the time going after the indriya vishaya. That is their swabhavika nature also, correct? So the indriyas under the control of indriya vishaya. And you, if you become come under the spell of the indriyas, then you are again mrityuna abhipannaha. You are under the spell of mrityu. Okay, that is the idea here. So that will also be again this nature of this mrityu will further be discussed in this Brahmana. Okay, and of course from that mrityu only, previously we talked about the ati mukti, correct? So what is that? The moksha. So tasmat parichinna rupat mrityoho ati muktasya rupani ajnadityadini udgita prakarane vyakhyatani. So there was a udgita prakarana also, which is the 1-3. There also the upasana, prana upasana and all was talked about. And once you identify, once you do not go after the sense objects, see, if you are going after the sense object, you become asura there. That is the teaching there, correct? Deva and asura, both are prajapatyaha. Like that it starts, that Brahmana. They are all children of Prajapati only. But whoever went after the sense objects, they became asura. Whoever is doing whatever Shastrokta karma, okay, you don't do Prakrita karma, but whatever Shastra is giving you, those disciplines and attitudes you are having, and based on that you do whatever karma, then you become Deva. So this and all was talked about there. So basically, by doing the Shastrokta karma and upasana, you gain the form of Agni, Aditya, etc., the Devatas. Okay. So by attaining the Devata Rupa, the form of these Devatas, then you have overcome these limitations, because basically your identity is with the total. So this was again talked about in the Udgita Prakarana also. But now what? Further, Ashvala Prashnecha Tad Gataha Vishesha Kaschit. And in the previous Brahmana also the same thing was talked about. How to transcend all these limitations with by doing certain upasanas. And the Visheshas also were given their specific details. Tacha etat karmanam jnana sahitanam phalam. So he says these are all basically the results of doing karma along with upasana. Here jnana means this is not atma jnanam. The word jnana or vidya is used to signify upasana. Okay. So here jnana means upasana. So karma, when it is done along with the upasana, you can gain all this phala. Further, what etasmat sadhya sadhana rupat samsarat mokshaha kartavyaha ityataha bandhana rupasya mrityoho swarupam uchyate baddhasya hi mokshaha kartavyaha. So what Bhashyakara says is, why the Upanishad is even talking about all these things, these different sadhanas, because karma and upasana are sadhana, and the sadhya of that is you are gaining all this loka, correct? Of course, and loka and the form of a particular devata and all that, that is the sadhya, means that is the end, that is the result. And that result again is giving you certain freedom, but that freedom is only a relative freedom. That's what Bhashyakara wants to point out here. And not only Bhashyakara says the Upanishad wants to point out, because previously it was talked as though these are all mukta. This is mukti itself, correct? Ati mukti, the words are all used. Freedom. Okay. And Adi Moksha Upasana, the first set of upasanas in the previous Brahmana is called Adi Moksha, means it is with reference to moksha and all that, or freedom from those limitations. Then is that moksha then? Or moksha is some other purushartha? No, that's what Bhashyakara wants to make clear here. There should not be any confusion. Therefore, he says, by gaining those sadhya, although there is some freedom, because it is not same kind of limitation. As a human being, your limitations are much, much more. From that you are freed, and you get a Devata Rupa, means that is basically a limitless form in one way, and therefore you gain certain freedom. But that doesn't mean that end itself is really complete moksha, which we talk about as a purushartha. Okay. In fact, you have to further be freed from this sadhya and sadhana itself, he says. The means and end itself, you have to become freed from all these means and end. Then only that is the real moksha. Okay. So to understand that, again, still you have to understand what is this mrityu, because the mrityu or limitation is only your bondage. Everybody's bondage. So that swarupam is being talked about now. What is the swarupa of this mrityu? Because unless you know what is your bondage, you won't know how to get free of that, correct? You have to understand your bondage. Baddhasya hi mokshaha kartavyaha. And also one who is in bondage only has to work for liberation or freedom from that. So that's what he says. So that is being discussed in this Brahmana, the Artha Bhaga Brahmana, the Swarupa of the Mrityu. Okay, Yadapi Atimuktasya Swarupa Muktam Tatrapi Graha Atigrahabhyam Avinurmuktaha Eva Mrityuhu Rupabhyam. So what Bhashyakara again points out is what, even though Ati Mukti was talked about in the previous Brahmana, and the Ati Mukti Swarupa is the identity with the Devata, finally with Hiranyagarbha, but even Hiranyagarbha is characterized by the Graha and Atigraha. Okay. So Hiranyagarbha also is not free, because Hiranyagarbha again is a totality of all the devatas who are all Hiranyagarbha's organs, means there also these things are, there are problems. In fact, if you go back to 1-2 Brahmanam, so there also this Hiranyagarbha Mrityu Varnanal is used there again. And Bhashyakara will quote that Ashanaya hi Mrityuhu. Hunger alone is death, like that it is talked about with reference to the Hiranyagarbha, because he felt this hunger and thirst and all is talked about there. And even in Aitareya Upanishad, similar thing comes. Okay. So the Hiranyagarbha also is only a padavi, it is only a status. And by gaining that exalted status, automatically you don't get mukti. You still have to have Atma Jnana. That's what Bhashyakara is pointing out. Gaining that state alone is not moksha. It is still a sadhya only. It is a result of some karma and upasana. So it is a karma phala. It is still a sadhya of some sadhana. So you have to be free from this sadhya sadhana itself. Okay. So the mrityu also is characterized by some limitations like graha and atigraha. It's not free. Avinir muktaha means even the Hiranyagarbha is not free from that, from these two things, this graha and atigraha, because they are the rupa of mrityu. Graha and atigraha are the nature of mrityu, and this graha and atigraha is still there even in Hiranyagarbha. That's what he says. So tatacha uktam. This was already said. Ashanaya hi mrityuhu. So only due to hunger, again hunger itself is, or mrityu is in the form of hunger. Yesha eva mrityuhu. Shatapatha Brahmana also talks about the same thing. Iti adityastham purusham angikritya aha. So Shatapatha Brahmana also is talking about the Purusha who is there within the Aditya. So one who identifies with the Aditya Devata, that Purusha also has mrityu. Ekaha mrityuhu bahava. Also Shatapatha also it says again, mrityu is there in many different forms, correct? Ekaha mrityuhu bahavaha means again mrityu is there in one form, mrityu is there in many forms. Although one mrityu we talk about, but mrityu itself is there in many different forms, many different ways manifest. Therefore, mrityu is there even for the Hiranyagarbha. Okay. So here further what? Tada atma bhava apannaha hi mrityoho aptim atimuchyate iti uchyate. So the one who has identity with this Hiranyagarbha or all these different devatas only, that person has now gained liberation from mrityu. Like this it was said. Okay. But what we have to understand is nacha tatra graha atigraho mrityu rupau nastaha. So the graha and atigraha we are talking about, that is not there, you cannot say even there. This is double negative, you have to understand. Nastaha means it is not there. So that means what? Graha and atigraha are not there, which are form of mrityu, are not there, like that you cannot say. Where nacha tatra. Tatra means this atimukti which you have attained by having identity with this Purusha who is in the Aditya Devata, for example, or the Purusha who is Hiranyagarbha. Even there, the graha atigraha rupa mrityu is still there. Okay, that's what Bhashyakara says. For that only he quoted all these things, Ashanaya hi mrityuhu and all that. So therefore, it is not the moksha as the Purushartha which we are talking about. Okay, these are all only jnana karma samuchaya phala. Why Bhashyakara and Upanishad has to point this out is, otherwise most people take this jnana karma samuchaya only as the sadhana for moksha itself. Therefore, that's why Bhashyakara is pointing it out here. Even the whatever which was talked about, because the words Amrita, Amarana, Amara is used for Devatas also. Devas are called Amaras. And even in Puranas and all, this Mohini only got all the Amrita and gave it to all the Devas. Okay. So the Samudra Manthanam from this Amrita came. In English, they talk about nectar and all that. What nectar, I don't know. But that's what the Amrita. The Devatas had the Amrita. The Asuras, again, only the Rahu and Ketu, or Rahu stood in that line somehow. He was an intelligent Asura. But before he can eat it fully, Vishnu as Mohini cut his head. But still, since he ingested the Amrita, he is still there. The head is there separately, body is there separately, correct? That is the Rahu and Ketu. Anyway, all that is all again simply talking about relative freedom only. It is all not the absolute moksha which we are talking about. That's what there also this graha atigraha rupam mrityu is there. So for that again he is quoting some more things. In fact, he is quoting whatever is going to come in this Brahmana. In this Brahmana itself, it is said that's why Ata etasya manasoho manasaha Vyau Shariram Jyoti Rupam Asau Adityaha. So this Manas as a Devata has Devuloka as the Sharira, and this Aditya itself is its Jyoti Rupam, is luminous form. All this it is going to be said. Similarly, Manascha Grahaha. Sorry, this was already said. Ata etasya. This is from 1.5, but here it is going to be said. Manascha grahaha sa kamena atigrahena grihitaha. So the mind itself is an organ, and it is again drawn by its own desires. Okay. Kamena atigrahaha. Kamena atigrahena grahitaha. So it grihitaha means it is again under the spell of the desires, the mind as an organ. So it is still not completely free. The graha atigraha rupa mrityu is still there. So iti vakshyati. This was already said. This mana also has its own sharira, and the aditya is the jyoti rupa there. And similarly, right now it is going to be said. This will be said, pointing out that these limitations are still there even if you become a deva. And similarly, prano vai grahaha saha apanena atigrahena. So again, this prana, grana prana is talked about here. Apana also means gandha. So the organ of smell is again grabbed by the sense objects which are different smells. Similarly, speech, vag vai grahaha sa namna atigrahena. The speech is again the organ, and it is again grabbed by different names, it seems, because the organ of speech is, or it wants to keep saying something, correct? Some names or the other. So it has certain attraction, means it is controlled by the names themselves. Like this, these things will be said here only to point out that these limitations are still there. So tata trayanna vibhage vyakyatam asmabhi. The same thing was again said before also, correct? The trayanna vibhaga is there. This 1.5 only. The fifth Brahmana in the first chapter, these things were already talked about. And suvicharitam cha etati, he says. So this was again well analyzed there. What was analyzed? He is again summarizing that. What he is trying to say is, this karma and upasana are the pravritti karana that was said here. If you go back to the 1.5, how it was said, because it is said that the karma you do produces a karma phala, which itself becomes a cause for you to do further karma, further karma, further karma, correct? That's why it's a vicious cycle. So this was pointed out there. So the karma and upasana themselves again become only a pravritti karana, means it only makes you do more and more karma. The karma phala you get again becomes a karana for you to do more karma. Again, you do more karma, like that. It keeps on going. It's only a pravritti karanam. And it cannot become a nivritti karana. Tadeva nivritti karanam na bhavati iti. The same thing cannot become or cannot make you stop all these things and make you get out of even being a karta, correct? Karta itself is a limitation. As long as you are a karta bhokta, you are limited. You are not going, you can become very big karta, like having the state of Hiranyagarbha and all that, but still you are still a karta only there. That's why the results of the things which are actually pushing you into pravritti cannot be the karana for nivritti, because they further only make you do things. That is the point. It was actually said in 1.5 Brahmana, if you go back. So the same thing he is pointing out here. So this was analyzed and established. What this karma and upasana are pravritti karana, means they make you, they are the cause for you to engage in action, correct? They cannot be the cause for you to give up all action and then and understand your very nature as one which is free from all karma. So that is not possible. It's against, in fact, they are opposed to each other. So this was shown already. Therefore, the same conclusion will be shown here also. But then Purva Paksha is addressing now. Kechittu sarvameva nivritti karanam manyante. So some people say that each and every, they don't want to give up karma. Understand that. All this, those who are committed to doing Vaidika karma, they don't want to give it up under whatever circumstance. So they are talking about, they are saying giving some excuses for continuing with karma. What is that excuse? So some of these people say all the karma themselves, whatever you are engaged in, they can become an nivritti karma. Why? Because by doing one karma and getting some phala, then you attain some other status that previous karma you won't do anymore, it seems. But you are doing something else, correct? So that's what Bhashyakara is pointing here. Ataha karanat. For this reason. What is that reason? Why they say that karma and upasana itself can be nivritti karana? Because purvasmat mrityoho muchyate uttaram pratipadyamanaha. So basically, by gaining a higher phala, whatever you previously did, from that you are released, correct? And you don't do that anymore. Therefore, one particular karma and upasana you do not for that sake itself, but for gaining the phala of that, and therefore you attain some other status which is exalted than the previous one and all that. That's what they are saying. So they are saying vyavrittartham eva pratipadyate natu tadarthyam. You are not doing a karma or upasana for the sake of continuously doing that only. You are doing that to get a phala, and once you get that phala, anyway you are going to give up whatever you did before. Therefore, karma itself can become, basically the karma and upasana is simultaneously, it is making you engage in action, but it will also release you from that. Like that, they gave some kind of an excuse, you can say. Ityataha advaita kshayat sarvam mrityuhu dvaita kshayetu paramarthataha mrityoho aptim atimuchyate. So they are also somewhat kind of advaitin only, I think, here, because they are saying up to the time you can give up this Dvaita Bhava, everything is Mrityu only. As long as Dvaita is there, division 2 is there, means one is limited by the other. And if limitation is Mrityu, then Mrityu will be there in Dvaita. You cannot do anything. But only when the Dvaita Kshaya, Dvaita itself is completely destroyed for you, then only in reality, Paramarthataha, Mrityoho, Aptim atimuchyate, you become free from the grasp of mrityu, death. But till then, all these intermediate things are all, they are freeing you from one type of karma and upasana, like that they are saying. Atascha apekshiki gauni mukti antarale. So intermediate is what, till the time you gain that dvaitakshaya, the karma and upasana themselves are freeing you, relatively at least. Okay, that is the view of some of these people. But Bhashyakara does not want to even encourage this, because he thinks that finally then they will say sannyasa is not possible. One should not take sannyasa. Even after jnana, you have to keep doing karma. That is what they really want to get at. So he says, simply he says sarvam etat evam. So if you say in this manner, all this is what he's Brhadaranyaka is there, correct? Then he says abarha Bharhadaranyakam. Abharhadaranyakam means what? It is something which is not said in Brhadaranyaka Upanishad. Whatever you people are imagining, it is all your own conclusions. The Brhadaranyaka Upanishad itself is not saying all these things. Okay. So that's what Bhashyakara says here. And further, actually, some more arguments are there. We'll see all this next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay. Namaskar. Dhanyawad.